In a universe full of ideas, we draw lightness from the dark to a place where opposites attract. Right meets left, positive touches negative, sparking an explosion of truth. Because politics makes strange bedfellows.
Now we have a situation where, once again, they're coming after not only Donald Trump, but everybody close to Donald Trump. This is all Biden's doing. And now Hunter Biden is suing Giuliani and your client and friend, Roger Stone, for invading his privacy. Is that explain the lawsuit to me, if you would, please, and tell me what it's all about.
Unless you breaking news here, Roger is not being sued. And thank God for that.
He was.
He was subpoenaed. That was what was brought
subpoenaed.
up.
Okay.
Right. So they're on this fishing expedition to try to get a hold of all of Roger Stone's personal messages, which I got news for them, at least in my communications with him. And by the way, I'm his personal counsel. So, a lot of that is privileged discussions of legal tactics and things like that. But they're going to be surprisingly disappointed because it's exactly what we say on the air. I mean, there's no changeover. There's no, the problem is I think with a lot of these leftists and Democrats is they don't realize when you're dealing generally with conservatives, libertarians, and I mean genuine people who are intellectually honest people. We don't go in the back room and come up with some scheme and then go out and put a narrative out there. It's the same thing we're saying back behind the scenes as we are out front, and because we don't have anything to hide in terms of our politics. We're not bullshitting you. What we say is what we mean. And in their case, though, it's like the Clintons I mentioned at the beginning, the Clintons oozing into Washington. The other thing they brought, besides the death of shame or the inability to shame people out of politics and the co-opting the media, was the narrative. Back then it was called spin, right? Oh, the spin. It was the spin doctors, But now it's the narrative. I need reality narrated to me, right? I'm so stupid. I mean, this is what they think of people and the citizens. I need a story told to me when I'm living it. Give me a friggin' break.
Fairy tales, as Jim Garrison called them. Exactly.
And it's in the case of Biden, Roger Stone, they're going to be sadly and sorely disappointed because, like I said, it's just going to be the only thing that would be maybe revealing is how little we think of these people and these are scumbags. I mean, my God, these federal criminals, these are criminals. To me, there's no worse criminal than a corrupted prosecutor who denies the possibility of justice or serves up injustice in the role with these powers that we particularly invest in them. And that's a real problem in our system. It's been something where and in the federal system, it's run amok, where I was really just wow, why even be in the law anymore? Because these people are they have totally thoroughly corrupted. I mean, and to the point of the judges are in on it too. I mean, that's
absolutely.
Whoa. And it's to the point where I believe, and I've been said and should be proposed. In fact, I'm working with a congressional candidate. He said, I said, this should be the first bill you write. He said, you write it for me. And I said, you bet I will. And that is to absolutely abolish the federal district court for Washington, D.C. That has become a pit, a viper's pit, a haven of sandbag leftist, just protecting. It's where justice goes to die. And it's not necessary that we have a court, a federal district court for that city or any courts in that city. They can be handled by the surrounding jurisdictions, however you want to dole it out. But if you look at it, it's become, and not to mention the populace of the district is 91% Democrat registered.
Oh, yeah.
How can you possibly, in any functioning reality that recognizes something called equity or fairness, the equities, and not equity like social justice equity, I mean actual equity, where you can say that in a partisan political case, you can fairly try someone who's a high-profile figure when 91% of the jury pool is from the opposite side, who, by the way, has the hallmark of their ideology or their political whatever have you is to hate the man or hate this particular, it's not just a matter of we oppose you, it's a jockeying for, no, they hate
I mean, it's
literally
impossible.
are
There's no
warpath.
way in jury selection you could possibly get a fair jury in a district where it's 91% Democrat, for crying out loud.
And yeah, and the judge herself, of course, is in the case of, I'm jumping over from Giuliani's case to Donald Trump's persecution, and I say that very specifically, persecution. He's not being prosecuted; he's being persecuted. He's absolutely these. I mean, as someone I've been a lawyer for 20 years, and before that, I studied the Constitution and law for probably another 20. I'm 52 years old, and let me tell you something. These cases are a travesty of justice and factual, just the facts generally. I mean, just as Roger Stone's case was an incredible contrivance, an unbelievably thin bunch of bullshit, cherry-picked by Andrew Weissman that had contradictory facts that used things like media reports as so-called evidence. But they knew they could get away with it because guess why? The media, it comes back to ultimately, 50 years ago, Walter Cronkite, these guys, all these, sort of luminaries in the media, they weren't going to risk their reputations trying to somehow cover for some corrupt politician.
That's right.
We have the exact opposite nowadays. We have the almost overnight, and it probably goes back to the Smith-Mundt deal as well as Operation Mockingbird as you know, Smith-Mundt, I don't know if you're familiar with, basically allowed domestic propaganda.
Yep.
Essentially what we have now, we don't have media. We have corporate propaganda for one political party or a political sect, you could say, because it goes obviously beyond. The Democrat Party is the font of it, but basically it goes into the intelligence community and now, the law enforcement community at the federal level, the defense. They've been drilling into the defense community for a long time now, and now we see that beginning to take fruition with people like this Mark Milley general who was just literally committing treason, telling the head of the Chinese military, "I'll let you know if." What? You're going to tell the head of the Chinese military if the president of the United States is doing anything that might harm China or is making moves? That is like ludicrous. They've been drilling into these institutions, and the media, I think, it's crazy because there used to be like CNN and the Trusted Name and News. It used to be there was always a lefty slant sort of in the media. And look, it was very subtle, but it was there. And it was definitely, they were hostile to Reagan. They were hostile to Nixon, but they couldn't, give LBJ enough passes. And Kennedy was lionized, which is ironic considering that now they treat Robert F. Kennedy Jr. like shit. I mean, it's
no joke. No joke. I think you froze up.
Because every November 22nd, there was something on the Kennedys. Every November 22nd, and you would have lionizing this family. And overnight, he begins to run with the same values and ethics, maybe even more so, of his father and his uncle, and truly lives up to the Kennedy name and to what that family represented and what they talked about. And he's savaged by them. He's treated like a piece of garbage. I mean, these people are degenerates. They're not, they're not objective. They are not neutral. And we cannot treat them as though they are basically just the megaphone for a propaganda machine. And thank God that we have broadcasts like yours and that we have so many now outlets, just flourishing all over the world where people can talk to each other and realize this is a bunch of bullshit that we're getting from these people and realize the truth. And, the older generation, I think, like the Trump, Roger Stone, it's like always, you see what the New York Times says, Roger. I say to him, Roger, you got to stop caring what the New York Times says, okay? Nobody cares what the New York Times says except the New York Times and that ilk. It's like they've become basically the establishment talking to itself, trying to justify on the basis of what was sort of traditional standards, you know what I mean? Like, oh, well, and the Bidens lived by this. Like, if you're caught with drugs, your career's over, like that's like all these sort of if this scandal or this, you can't do this, like these sort of like ethical rules, but
it's okay if his son gets caught with massive amounts of drugs.
Well, yeah, that's all over now. I mean, it's totally, that's just it. Yeah. The bottom has dropped out. There's drugs, that's the least of it. I mean, come on. Like, I don't care if someone does drugs. If you perform your job, which we can certainly talk about that aspect of it. I mean, I've been fighting the drug war. It's amazing to me that Joe Biden it's unbelievable the damage that this man did as a senator with the Biden crime bills and the drug laws that he promulgated, and was at the forefront of trying to outlaw and order the Republicans, and in the Reagan era. I mean, this man was dangerous, and the destruction that if you just lopped off his presidency and didn't even exist and it never happened, he would still have done more damage to this country and to the black communities of this around the urban black communities in this country than I think will ever be able to be calculated. He is just, the man is a monster. He's a cancer on this country. And what's crazy is he's too senile to really ever be held to account in his mind. You know what I mean? Like, meaning he'll never feel the brunt of what he deserves in terms of justice. That he should be reviled and laughed out of history.
They're going to give him a pass like they do with all those old Nazis, like the 98-year-old Nazi up in Canada. They're going to totally give him a pass because they'll say he's too old, he's too fragile.
Yeah,
we can't hold him accountable now.
So he got away with it. Just let it go.
So he got away with it.
Jeez, it's awful. I don't feel any. I wouldn't feel any remorse to see the liquidation, frankly, to use the term lightly, of George Soros, of these people who are mass murderers, as far as I'm concerned, who have wrought destruction on an untold scale. It's just like, what? I don't have sympathy for that. That's an animal. That's not a human being. That is a demon. I don't know, if you want to use
that's the way I've
terms.
Always felt about it. I mean, I'm not going to lie. I think that sometimes I'd go so far as to say that Stalin didn't kill enough Nazis after World War II, and that's why we still have a Nazi problem today. I think they should have gone to the wall. I'm not a big fan of Stalin.
That was like, that's like watching sharks against the, I don't know, sharks fight sharks.
Talk about animals.
Stalin was, what did they say in the, what was the movie with Jeff Bridges? Where he says, say what, yes, and he says, say what you will of National Socialism, at least it's an ethos, right? And Hitler was a thought out animal. Stalin was just a savage, he killed everybody. My God, his own intelligentsia. That's the Nazis didn't even go as far as that. Which when you talk about Soviet communism or Mao, frankly, same thing. Not in any way, believe me, they're all left wing, and this is crazy. Like, to try to call the Nazis a right wing ideology. It's National Socialism. What are you talking about? It's collectivism. It's coercion, and it makes me laugh. I mean, it makes their heads explode. But I said, sorry, but all authoritarian ideologies are leftist. You can't call Nazis right wing. I said, where does that leave libertarians or anarchists?
They
like,
call
I guess where are we?
Nazis.
No, I'm sorry. The right wing is like anarchy. To be honest, folks, libertarian. I'm an anarchist. philosophically. I'm not gonna.
So is my dad. He taught me
there's
that.
no question. Or voluntarist. Let's just say. I don't.
Yes.
I don't see. I have yet to find the logical syllogism that says that any form of authority that's imposed on anyone by whatever have you, this collective of people, is legitimate, has any sort of inherent authority to it. That we were talking about, in fact, Rick, you said at the beginning, we the people. You raised a very interesting question about that. One thing that I thought the bulletproof argument, and I would say check out Larkin Rose. He's a great guy. He's a voice in the wilderness, but he's so unassailable. And he wrote he has a book and also a sort of a long form, I guess, almost a documentary. It's called The Most Dangerous Superstition. And the most dangerous superstition is statism. This idea that of the state is this all powerful entity that, has these superpowers that, and it's akin to a religion. It has its Bibles or its scriptures, so to speak, in the laws. It's got its ceremonies, its whatever we call it, high masses, and it's got its temples all around, and it's got its high priests. It really is akin to that. But one of the things that I think logically you can say is, if one person cannot do something to another person, no amount of people getting together in terms of righteousness, no amount of people getting together who have that, can't do that together, cannot then suddenly do that to one person. So meaning if I can't rob you one-on-one, then how do I get to rob you by getting together with 1 million people? This doesn't make it any more right. Meaning the collectivist, the notion of the collective or the does not impart any more power.
I believe that's called the IRS.
Yeah, exactly. No, it's
which
true.
I understand
look,
you'd like to abolish, and so would I. I've heard you
absolutely,
say that you want to abolish the IRS, the FBI, and the CIA, and I couldn't agree more. My guy, Ron Paul's been saying that for 40 years, and I'm totally on board with that. I think that's
now more than ever.
now more than ever, especially when you look at the Biden administration, the 87,000 IRS agents to come collect from you for the collective. When you look at the FBI that's so out of control, this DOJ that's so out of control, and they've made your friend, your client, Roger Stone, a perennial target. They will not leave this man alone. And now they're coming after him again. Now, I wanted to ask you a little bit, getting back to Stone. My dad was a prosecutor, district attorney. I grew up in a family of lawyers. I'm not a lawyer, but I have a love for it. I have a love for the art of lawyering. And sometimes I wonder, I know, sometimes I wonder what it would be like to be Roger Stone's lawyer, because he wouldn't be the easiest client to manage. And
to say the least.
I'm going to play you an example.
A lot of exploding heads in our ranks, let's just say.
I can only imagine, my friend. I'm going to play you guys a clip. Now, this is a few years ago. It was a deposition that was being taken, I believe, by Larry Klayman, founder of Judicial Watch. And this is just classic. This is why I would not want to be Roger Stone's lawyer.
If you want to keep insulting me, this will be over. You can run back to the judge like a little.
Better do it quick.
Before you're disbarred.
Stop. Mr. Klayman.
No further questions. This deposition is concluded for now, subject to my going back and moving the court to produce all the documents that we requested.
Subject to your still being admitted to the bar. Please note that for the record. You have nothing. This proves nothing.
That's what you told Mueller, right? You have nothing. That's what your clients argued at the trial.
I'm not going to discuss the criminal case. If you want to keep insulting me, this will be over. You can run back to the judge like a little.
I'm doing what?
If you want to keep insulting me, I will just end this and you can go running back to the judge.
Did you just call me
You're acting like one.
No, what is a according to you?
What's the point of that?
I'm entitled to know what you meant by
Like a
Come on.
What is it?
You don't know?
Stop.
You're unfamiliar with the term?
You're going to wind up getting sanctioned, Mr. Duchel.
No, you're going to wind up getting sanctioned, Mr. Klayman. Like you are in D.C. So let's go.
Let's not do that.
Why not? Not going to be badgered by the
Badgered.
Oh, yes, I am. Yes, I am. You got nothing. You're not going to get anything by interviewing me.
We can produce it if you withheld it, can I?
I haven't withheld it. You prove I withheld it, do that. But you don't have to do that either.
No, we'll look for it.
You can look for it all you want. You'll find nothing. Okay. I doubt this case will get very far because it's a conspiracy theory based on no evidence.
Conspiracies happen, don't they, Mr.
They do, but in this case, it's a fantasy.
Can you ask a question that's relevant
You're delusional.
to your
You're
lawsuit?
deeply delusional.
Are you saying I'm mentally unstable?
That's not what I said. I said you're delusional.
Stop. Ask a question a lawyer would ask, please.
I am a lawyer.
You could fool me. How come you can't practice in the Southern District? Why won't they let you practice there if you're Mr. Ethical?
I can practice in Southern District.
Only if you attach the judge's order.
I have a case right now.
Stop.
In fact, you're aware that I have a case right now.
I'm not aware that you have a case there, but I doubt it.
You also released that story to Al Kamen of the Washington Post.
Absolutely, completely false. You have no evidence of that. It's defamatory.
You have.
Stop defaming me.
You have.
You know that I have a following among conservatives. Stop defaming me, Mr. Klayman. Absolutely, completely false. You have no evidence of that. False. Completely false. Categorically false. Completely and totally false. That is entirely false. False, incorrect, false. That is incorrect. I have never said anything of the kind.
Well,
That's false,
well,
to be clear. Do you have any evidence of that? You have no evidence to the contrary. There was no evidence of that. Do you have any proof? Evidence? Real evidence? Not just wild conjecture, evidence. And you have no evidence of it. No evidence. There is no evidence of that because it's not true. Proof. Evidence, Larry.
Is that
evidence.
insane?
Proof, Larry. Evidence. Proof. Evidence.
Who talked?
I don't recall.
You don't recall?
No, I don't.
You're lying, aren't you, Mr. Stone?
No, you're lying, aren't you,
You're a
Mr.
convicted
Clayton?
liar, aren't you?
Stop.
And you're about to be ousted from the bar.
Stop. Let's take a break. Good time for a break.
Have fun molesting your own children, Larry? I read the court decision.
You read that, huh?
Yeah, I did.
You didn't read anything else.
You.
We off the record. Yes.
Roger Stone did nothing wrong. Roger Stone did nothing wrong.
It's just priceless. Oh,
You know,
my goodness.
as outlandish as it sounds, he's right. Roger was right. Larry
He
Klayman.
was. And
Larry
he was right about
Klayman
Larry
is-
Klayman,
used to
who
run
did
Judicial
lose his
Watch.
license.
Yeah,
Sorry?
Klayman
Yeah, he
was
ran Judicial
booted
Watch.
from his own organization. He started.
That's
Now it's
right.
run by Tom Fitton, thank God.
And he
Klayman
did
is
get
a
suspended.
serial. He's the ambulance chaser if there ever was one. I mean, it's
Yep.
insane. And I think Roger certainly. Roger says I'm Sicilian. I'm half Sicilian, which he is. Roger's got a hot temper, and I think he was at a boiling point. I mean, how much can you heap onto one man? And I think that's why they do it. They know that he's volatile that way sometimes. He's definitely different. You know, he's come through the crucible intact,
He has.
and I'll say that for him. And look, Roger's no saint. He'd never tell you that. I mean, but he's certainly. I mean, compared to the Clintons and these people, Roger is definitely a choir boy comparatively. I mean, it's a joke. Like they talk about quote dirty tricks, which is another big lie. They used to talk about Stone, self-described dirty trickster Roger Stone. That is the first. If you read that, you've read an immediate lie. He has never described himself as a dirty trickster ever, anywhere. In fact, the Los Angeles Times had to retract a portion of a story because they said that, and he said, "I'm gonna, that's wrong." And so they could not find anywhere where it's one of these leftist propagated tropes they use, and Roger, I feel for him because they really have they've been even though we still stand up and fight, they've been successful at kneecapping this man. They've been successful at they were successful just as they did with the Trump presidency. As much good has happened under President Trump, whether you agree or not. I mean, you can't deny the economic aspects of it, and certainly the fact that we didn't get into any more interventions overseas and that things were pretty good. I mean, it shows to me that these people's emotional dysfunction, because they hate one man. Like, I mean, Trump's arrangement really is an actual, I think, affliction.
Oh, it's a
because
thing.
like you're willing to burn the world down and throw everything to hell just to get one man, and it's and including the justice system now, and the integrity of our entire system is at stake, where these pygmies, these mercenary pygmies come out of the woodwork and are indicting them all over the country in succession. I mean, it's just, and it's like you're only clever by half. Do you really think people believe this bullshit that you're putting out here? Do you really think? But you know what? They can use the systems, the levers, the mechanics of the system to grind a guy up, and there's nothing you can do about it. I mean, like literally, if it comes down to it, I mean, and when they do this, and when people know it's phony, it's like, you're risking like whether people will begin to think, do I need to obey any of these laws? Do I need to, observe anything that is passed as quote law? And comes back to what I was saying about this idea of, sort of anarchism or voluntarism, where it's like, where do you get off sending these people? Why am I living, for example, in the drug laws under some strict liability criminal offense with incredibly harsh draconian penalties merely for possession? You don't even have to have intent, you just have to be in physical possession of something, which has never been justified in any way.
And that's what they did
again.
Other than just sort of moral, whatever. Our living under drug laws written by people who've been dead for 100 years in some cases.
Written by a church lady.
You guys, they must think that, and that's why we see the FBI so much more in action, because it comes down to, well, we're just going to come and bust the door down with a mob and take you away. We're just
like
going
they did to Roger.
It's come down to, coercion comes in many forms. but ultimately it's physical violence, and that's what they're down to now. And don't think that it's not going to continue to propagate if we don't stop it now and halt it and get these people who are the real criminals, frankly, under control.
Damn right.
This has been a Maverick Multimedia production.